Man, I'm having so much fun. This is a $1.6 trillion industry. I'm talking about the food and beverage space. If you're not having fun, you're in the wrong place. Yes, it's hard work, but my gosh, the companies, the brands, the flavors, the experiences, the missions, it's fantastic. But some of the brands are different, better, and special. They're the ones who are able to really compete and vie for customer loyalty. Look, I know you want to make your brand different, better, and special. I know you yourself want to be different, better, and special. That's my mission. That's why you're here. Join me on this journey as I interview CEOs and founders from all the different companies within the food and beverage industry so we can discover what they're doing, so we can take that information back, digest it, and become better ourselves, and to help our companies take on different strategies, pick the right technology, pick the right partners, and of course, you got to have great tasting food. You got to have great tasting beverages. Packaged goods. If it doesn't taste good, you're lost. I'm sorry. You're going to lose millions. If you're new here, take the 5-episode challenge. Go back, pick out some brands, some CEOs, some topics. If you love the content, subscribe. You're going to find it on every podcast platform once or twice a week. But I also publish them on LinkedIn because that's where we kind of hang out. So when you see it on LinkedIn, stop by, make a comment, share it back into your food and beverage network. I would appreciate it. The brands would appreciate it. To all my loyal listeners, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being with me on this journey. Thanks for coming along on this mission for the past 2 years. If you are considering a strategic job change, message me. Let's have a confidential conversation. If your brand is growing and you need to attract experts, you also need to contact me because I have created a different, better, and special recruiting system. I promise you, no other search firm in America is doing that. Who am I? I'm Tony Moore. I'm an expert food and beverage headhunter, semi-professional podcaster, and I'm here each and every week. Stay tuned for this week's episode. Maha Tahiri. You're a PhD. Do most people address you as Dr. Tahiri?
Most people address me as Maha.
I don't want. Some people, they've earned it. So okay, perfect.
I've earned it, but I think I think people need to earn their credential every day, because it's not because you've had it 25 years ago that you have that title every day. So you can call me Maha.
Well said. You are not resting on your laurels. I love it, Maha. Well, I want to give people a little bit of your background. You'll do it much better than me, but a lot of us use LinkedIn. So you really have positioned yourself as a board advisor, an expert in nutrition, sustainability, scaling. We're always interested in scaling, innovation. You were the former chief health and wellness officer at General Mills. That should open a few eyes and prick a few ears, because that is one of the largest consumer brands in the world. And Maha and I were chatting just about all the different applications that she's involved in, the different boards that she's involved with, and the things that she's advising. And I thought, I would love to have her come on and just talk a little bit about life and, the trends, kind of what's happening in the food and beverage space. We're going to make it really casual. And I hope that we can invite Maha back when we have food and beverage brands on, and she can kind of listen to the CEOs and entrepreneurs and see what they're working on and kind of get her unique perspective. So Maha, thank you so much for joining us and bringing in your birds as well.
Well, I closed the door so that there will be no background.
Well, that's probably best. Oh, I'm in my office, so no one's going to hear my cute little dog barking either. So that's probably.
And I am in my office because I work from home.
You're full-time remote. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your actual expertise. So when you go to a party and someone says, Maha, what do you do? What do you tell them?
I actually try not to talk about my expertise when I go to a party.
Well, if you're forced into it, you're stuck in a corner and a guy comes up and he's holding a drink and you're like, oh God, I can't get out of this.
the minute I say I have a background in human nutrition, I start doing the the plan for everybody to lose weight. And that is not what I do, actually. I have a PhD in human nutrition, and I chose the path of nutrition because I really wanted to have an impact on people's lives. So very early in my career, in my education, that was my purpose, and nutrition was really a good way of doing it. And I wanted to do it with scale. And so that's why I joined the food industry, and I worked for 4 major companies in the world that truly are in the pantries of almost everybody. I worked for Mars, for Coca-Cola, for Danone, and for General Mills. And my roles were truly at the intersection between scientific research, regulatory, communication, but with always an aim towards health and wellness innovation. I've done a lot of work with consumer. I worked for 24 years, I was based in Europe. For 10 years, I was based here in the US. Most of my roles were global. And so it's truly, I would say, my role in these companies with my teams, because you never achieve anything on your own. It was really translating science into business opportunities. So in a nutshell, that's what I do. And I did that for more than 20 years. And 3 years ago, I also have, in parallel to nutrition and to innovation, I have another passion, which is scuba diving, which actually brought me very, very close to sustainability and to the environment. And I wanted to bring my passions together. And so I opened my own consultancy, Nutrition Sustainability Strategies. And I started working solely with companies that are aiming at improving the food system. And so I work a lot with startups all over the world who have a problem to solve. And I help them in their company strategy. I help them in the science strategy, in the positioning of their products from an innovation perspective. Sometimes I open doors in the regulatory or in the geographical expansion world, because my roles were global. And it's fun. It's really fun because the variety of technological problems, the variety of technologies that in my company we work with it's amazing. I mean, it goes from simple plant-based to gene editing to cell agriculture to precision fermentation to biomass fermentation to all of the above, sometimes in the same. So it's really cool.
Where would you say the investors are more likely to want to put their money behind?
Well, so far they have been really putting their money behind. If we stay in the world of sustainable food systems in the food area, not in the ag, but in the food, a lot behind alternative proteins. So that's
we've seen that. We've seen a lot in alt protein.
Yeah, alternative proteins. I think within that alternative protein, I would say that we're missing a lot of opportunities because we're almost tackling it in one way.
What do you mean we're missing opportunities?
Everybody is obsessed about replacing meat. And
yes,
absolutely there is a market for replacing meat.
They're trying to do like a 1-for-1, right? Replacement.
They're trying to do 1-for-1. And I have nothing to say against the fact that we're trying to do 1-for-1. We absolutely need to do that. However, if you think about plant-based with a little bit more open mind, you would think that there are other venues of plant-based without having to replace meat. And if we think about displacing meat versus replacing it, there would be opportunities of making vegetables more taste better, vegetables look better, vegetables having a better texture. And here you're going to be in a situation where in one situation, the consumer has a really, really amazing experience with meat, and we're trying to give the consumer a second best. On the other hand, we have consumers who really want to eat vegetables, but really don't like it. And so if we can upgrade versus downgrade their experience, that's another market.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you just from the consumer's point, and that's the angle that I'll be taking here today when I chat with you. I'm a flexitarian. I do substitute out, alt protein, but sometimes it does feel like it's an alternative, a second best, if you will, if I'm trying to compare flavor, texture, consistency, all those types of things, right? Because they're trying to make a substitute.
Yep. And even, if you look, there are companies who are making burger patties with the real vegetables. They are not trying to mimic the meat of the burger, but they are making patties with vegetables that really, really taste great. And so that's why I prefer the word displacing, because it gives you a lot of freedom on how to do things. There are companies like Motif who are, I love what they're doing in the sense of they're looking at biodiversity. Nature is immense, and we have not scratched the surface of what is palatable in nature, what we can eat in nature. And with AI, with how much we can explore in nature, we probably can create foods that do not exist, but come from nature and that maybe taste better than what we have today.
How would we use AI, Maha, for discovery?
Let's say, for example, we find the molecules that are responsible for a better taste, for a certain profile in flavors, et cetera, and then we can map a number of plants and see which ones has that,
really cool.
Which one has less bitterness, which one has more sweetness, which ones, and so we can do a triage or a selection in vegetables or in plants that could be good candidates for product development in introduction for food consumption.
So you're not talking about like genetically modifying, right? You're just talking about like creative creations or combinations.
No, not in this case. I'm not talking about genetically modifying them, but I'm talking about finding ways of extracting from nature and finding in nature things that actually would inherently be good and taste good and with a good texture and could help actually enhance that experience with vegetables.
So do you think that is the next kind of frontier for us?
For sure. The next frontier for us, I think it's really a better understanding of how we can make vegetables be more in the center of the plate rather than meat. And so that's why, again, I like the displacing versus replacing, because displacing gives us a lot of freedom in what do we replace it with. It doesn't have to smell like meat. It doesn't have to look like meat. It just have to give a consumer a much enjoyable experience than what vegetables usually give to majority of us. Not everybody. There are people who really love vegetables for what they are, but it's not the case for everybody.
You know what I want? I want to see changes to sugar. I have such a huge sugar addiction. You and I kind of talked about it.
I don't think you have a sugar addiction, but
why? Okay, so why not? I have my morning ritual. I'm going to have my coffee. I put sugar, I put cream. After meals, I tend to want something kind of sweet afterwards. I thought that was what that was.
But you told me when we talked that you have your coffee, you put one small spoon or two of sugar in your coffee, and then you have dessert, and then that's it. And then in the morning, you need a little bit of sugar to have a little bit of energy for your day. That's fine. Having something sweet after a lunch, why not? It's part of the pattern and the habits of eating for a lot of Western countries to have something sweet to end kind of like a signature of the end of a meal.
Yes.
I don't see here like you are binging on sugar between your breakfast and lunch, and then between lunch and dinner. That's not excessive consumption of sugar. You have just I think we need to really be reasonable in not vilifying things in a way that makes it like, oh, it's just, we can't even have a little bit of it.
But it was interesting, though, because you're right. Sugar has been kind of vilified, but yet it's very much part of just most of the food that we eat. So you've got to consume, you have an entrepreneur that wants to fix a problem, right? They want to be like a mission-based or maybe a social enterprise, something like that. Do you find that it's better to start with the product itself that you want to create, or do they start with the problem first and then work backwards? Because I find that I've talked to entrepreneurs that have said, gosh, they kind of wish they had started with the food or the beverage first rather than trying to tackle the problem because they can get off track. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but for me, it depends on what problem you're talking about. In my humble opinion, and I have been successful and unsuccessful with innovation. So, in my humble opinion, if the problem is a consumer problem, that is the right place to start. If you're talking about the problem of the planet, of the food system, etc., that is not necessarily a good place to start with your product development, with how you see yourself developing a product. There is absolutely an overarching problem in our society. Yes, but what we are developing, we're developing products that should make sense and should solve problems for consumers in their daily life. Let me give you an example. If I'll take a mom, she works 10, 12 hours a day. She has 3 kids. And she wakes up at 6 a.m. and she has to prepare the breakfast and the lunch boxes for her kids, and then go and take them to practice sports. And I'm talking about what prior.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a totally full life of every meal and running the kids around.
So, are you going to sell a product to her, really reaching to that mom, saying, okay, you are destroying the planet by doing this and this and this. You need to buy these products that are sustainable? Or is it a better way to reach out to this mom to understand her daily struggles and see how you can bring a progress? If a progress is to make her kids eat vegetables without the drama that goes with it all the time, she's going to buy the product, because it's going to make her life easy. And by the way, you're going to be, as a founder, absolutely delivering on your mission and your values and what you want to do for the food system. But if you approach it in terms of fear that people need to act because the planet is gonna suffer and we cannot live on it, it's not really motivating for consumers. Consumers don't have the time. And I really, I insist we should never blame consumers for not having the time or say, well, they don't know, we need to educate them or patronize them. That is the absolutely wrong approach. We're not in their shoes. We don't live their life. And therefore, we need to understand their life and listen to their struggles and try to find solutions to their struggles, while delivering food that is nutritious and sustainable, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, you're talking about a marketing problem.
No, I'm talking about innovation.
Well, I mean, it's a marketing problem if you approach them and try to guilt them, into selecting the product out of guilt or fear. And you're saying, no, that's not how you approach them. You can still be executing on your mission, right? But you're approaching the consumer at the consumer level, fixing their problem. That's what I meant.
Yeah. I agree. But if you approach it that way, you also are not going to deliver it with in mind. It needs to taste better for the kids. You will not have these attributes in mind while you are developing your product, because you'll be so obsessed about what you're going to put on the package so that you deliver your message, and not necessarily on the things that matter to her. It's two products that are different that you'll be developing if you're developing them for two different reasons.
I'm not saying you're a food futurist or anything like that, but you are obviously focused on trends and consumer sentiments. Where else are consumers moving? What other new directions do you find that people are moving into that companies need to be trying to address?
I think people are needing some, how can I call it? Some peace with their food. This tension with a binary world where sometimes sugar is the devil, sometimes fat is the devil. Losing weight is still a big issue for a lot of people. And I think people are trying to move from, I need to lose weight, I'm going to do this diet and then this diet, and they're looking for something that is more maybe wholesome, maybe has taken on different values than just decreasing the calories by shutting down one of the macronutrients. And I think that's good. If we can deliver that to them, that's good. Because having an obsessive, bad relationship with food, it's not healthy. One of the anthropologists that I have worked with in Europe, he said, we are the only species that really has a problem with their source of living and with their territory. We are starting to have a complicated relationship with actually the food that help us to live, and with the environments that we live in, we're destroying it. So it's usually not behaviors that describe how a species thrive.
Yeah, I kind of resonate with that, because you can get kind of obsessed and focused, on food or calories or a certain, ingredient. And it does kind of put you at odds, with it.
And what the research shows is that truly when people start dieting, the more diets they do, the more weight they accumulate, because they put the weight on again, and then they start another diet. And you see, like, it's kind of like a stairs.
You think it has a negative effect?
Yeah.
Ultimately, so, right? I guess like you get off the diet and you kind of bounce back even more, you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's my point. It's like you're not, you haven't transitioned to a better way of eating, and just let the better way of eating be your normal.
And I am a strong believer in the next generation. If we really find ways to introduce vegetables to kids very early, an introduction of a food to a toddler is 25 times, 20 times. That is one exposure. An exposure is 20 times exposing the toddler to broccoli. It's not one time and then he decides or she decides that she doesn't like it. It's really we learned a lot about parenting and how we can truly bring kids to liking vegetables or to liking things that are healthy at an early age. It's tough. It's not easy, but it is feasible. And
I've not heard that much, but you just have to be committed to that. I wish I had known that. I don't think I exposed, the children to, a type of food that many times, right? Because after a while, if they don't like it, it's kind of like it's hard, right? You're trying to get, right? You're trying to get dinner done. You don't want to have crying, that kind of stuff. But you're saying you need to find a way to continue the exposure 20, 25 times. and then it starts becoming adopted?
Yep. And the exposure starts during pregnancy. The breastfeeding contribute to the exposure too. So
okay.
they are you can start early in that process. So nutrition of the mother during pregnancy is important. So there are a lot of things that we know now that we didn't really truly know, and we didn't communicate enough about. Apparently, we're still not communicating enough about that.
I don't think it is. It's definitely not being communicated enough. When you're talking to a prospective client, what types of business problems are they having when they come to you, and you look at that client and you say, you know what, I can help them. I want people to get an understanding of maybe where their business is. They're at a point when they would need to maybe talk to you. I'm assuming, you take on new clients. So tell me a little bit about the business situation or maybe phase of the growth the company's in that they say, you know what, we need some outside help. We need some advisory here.
So I do different things. So a company could come to me and say, okay, we are at this level of concept development of our products. We're entering the scaling up of this path for our products. What I do often with companies is I connect them with places where they can partner, where they can scale up, where they can expand and shorter their time to market. What I also do is which is really something that happens often with startups. They usually do not have a pipeline of innovation. They have a product, a technology, but they're not thinking about, okay, and so what's next? What is my next generation? How do I build the pipeline? What is going to happen when my product will be in the market and people can copy it? Because not everybody has technology insulation to the point where nobody can copy it. And so we work on a pipeline. I work with companies in their regulatory strategy, and not only in entry to market, but in how to gain competitive advantage.
Now, that sounds kind of interesting. How to build a competitive advantage into your food or beverage lineup. Absolutely.
And I can give you the example of General Mills, because that is an example I can talk about. Of course, regulatory, there is a lot of protecting yourself, and there's a lot of opening the door for entry to market with grass, with novel food, with all of the applications to be in a market. But there also claims, nutrition claims, structure function claims, et cetera, et cetera. At General Mills, we had, and you can build science in a way that you might own a territory, or you might preempt and be the first to be talking about something. General Mills did the great work on whole grains and did a lot of fundamental research on whole grain. And so that actually was one of the things. The regulation on the labeling of dietary fiber changed drastically 4 or 5 years ago in the US. And I know as for sure that a lot of startup companies don't know that, and it's going to hit them very hard. And so for General Mills, who had a brand called Fiber One, it was extremely important that we clear that regulation, and we petitioned and got the fibers used in Fiber One on the list of dietary fibers that are recognized by FDA. And so that, and you do it, you're the first to do it, and you get it, and you go. And so these are the type of things that you can do with regulatory to do competitive advantage. And people are always scared about regulatory because they think it's problems. It's not problems. It's really, really a way to gain market share, to be the first in the market for some things.
It's a business moat. You talk if you're an investor, you're looking, you want to invest in companies that have a moat around them that people just can't easily scale and take over your market share.
Yeah. I do a lot of innovation workshops with the companies, because that's what I talk about when I'm saying, like, what is your innovation pipeline? What is your next thing that you're going to do to build your company for the long run? And it's just not just the 2 years to get to the IPO that counts, but a little bit more than that. Plant-based, it's like a wall with multiple doors, and everybody is rushing in one door, but there are so many other doors that are open. And how can you explore, depending on your brand, depending on your which are the doors that would be coherent for your company?
I feel like we are literally just kind of scratching the surface on so many topics. And I hope this is just kind of wetting everyone's whistle, so to speak, for the types of conversations that you and I can have. I'm really looking forward to bringing back some plant-based foods or functional beverages, and introducing these CEOs and entrepreneurs to you, and kind of hearing just, as you kind of peel back the layers of the onion, just what are they doing? Are they setting themselves up for success? I think it's going to be fascinating. We didn't have a lot of examples to go through today because we just wanted to have a kind of a casual little chat, but I think it'll be really fascinating when we actually have a live brand that comes down here and has the guts to come down here and kind of talk through these things with us. I think it'll be kind of exciting to do that.
Yeah, that would be great.
I think it'll be a lot of fun. Like I said, we're just kind of scratching the surface of all the things that you're working in. One of the questions I wanted to ask, and I know we won't be able to get into it fully, but I know you said you've kind of worked around the world, and I'm just kind of curious, what parts of the world are probably the most advanced in this? And I would imagine, America in some cases is not leading. And just, I wonder how far we have to go.
It depends on what you're talking about. I mean, on technologies for alternative proteins, the US is doing great. Europe is doing well. Israel is really, really an amazing country for innovation, and therefore they crack a lot of problems because the infrastructure, the way the country is really promoting innovation, and the proximity of the players together is interesting. Singapore is a good hub also for innovation. Japan has been on technology for a long time, not the technology in food necessarily, but they are getting into it. They really are. And so I think everybody is getting into it. Some are historically very much, it's very much anchored, and some are going to be very quick in catching up. What I really believe is that the technology is not going to be the big barrier.
So that begs the question, what will be the big barrier? People?
I think what will be the big barrier is really understanding the consumer, because technology will not, we have really, really smart people and tools and everything. If you go to Berlin, and there are groups that are doing an amazing group in technology and developing technologies, etc. What will actually help the category to become mainstream is the understanding of the consumer. It's developing products that actually will do a job for the consumer. It's targeting those struggles for the consumer. That is how, and it's almost getting out of just replacing alternative protein. This should not be alternative protein, because the market of alternative protein might be beyond just being alternative protein. And that's where the genius of for us to be like doing not vertical innovation. Like we're all looking at alternative protein. Okay, how can I replace a protein by protein in my category? But there are jobs that consumers have in multiple moments of the day. And if we looked at this job agnostic to what's in there, we might actually be doing horizontal innovation and taking from other things than just proteins, because maybe alternative proteins will deliver the job much better. We don't know that because we're not exploring what alternative protein can do outside of just the job of alternative proteins.
Yeah, that's a big topic for us to unpack, and I hope we can. And I hope everyone has had a great little insight into the mind of Maha. We've got more coming, but that will have to wait for another podcast session. Maha, thank you so much for joining me today and kind of just giving everyone a taste for, what the future is really going to hold in alternative proteins and just this kind of innovation flywheel that really needs to be created.
Thank you very much for having me. I would love to continue the conversation. I think this is a topic that will last for a long time. And the more of us that are putting our heads together, the better it's going to be for solving the solutions of the problems of the future.
I agree. It's going to be exciting. And we look forward to our next one. So this is our first installment with Dr. Maha Tahiri. Thanks so much for joining us, Maha.
Thank you. Bye-bye.